Today we're going to be working on a 2013 Infiniti G37. We're going to be installing a V-line, and we'll be taking out the radio and the center console here, and we'll show you how to do that. Alright, so the first step will be taking off this piece of trim here. To do that, we'll have to take off the shifter knob, and you'll pull down right here, and there'll be a metal clip that you'll just pull off. Alright, so here's the metal clip. You'll want to pull back on it and be careful with this because it can go flying. And that's what actually locks this in place. So you can lift it up. And then from here, we'll pry on the trim to lift it up. The next step will be pulling off this trim. We're using our pry tool for this. And once you've got it lifted up, there's going to be some plugs underneath. Alright, so these plugs can be a little difficult to get loose. The clip to release them is going to be right here, and we actually use the pry tool to push down on that to get it. These will only be here if you have the heated seats, otherwise you can continue with the installation. Okay, so this piece of trim at the bottom of the radio will come off first. We're just going to pry on that. There we go. And now that we've got that out, we can pry up here. And then you'll have the two plugs if you do have the heated seats. Alright, now that we've got this loose, and you might have to shift down to get this out. We're just going to put this to the side for now, but you can unplug it. And then we'll have the two Phillips head screws down here we need to remove. And once those are removed, this trim will pull out from the bottom and then down. And we'll need to disconnect these plugs here. We're going to disconnect these plugs on the back of the panel. And this plug here is actually up here. And now I've got this panel removed. And from here we'll be removing the two Phillips head screws below the display cover. And now that we got those loose, this will pull out. And the last steps will be removing the radio, so we'll remove these screws here and pull out the display. And all these screws that go in behind the trim that don't hold the trim in are going to be silver like this, whereas the other ones will be black. Once we've got the display loose, we'll disconnect these two. And then lastly, we can remove the radio. Alright, so the final step to remove the radio here will be removing the last two screws. They're going to be back here on the left and on the right, so we'll remove those. And now that we've got those removed, we can pull the radio out. Alright, so now that we've got the radio out, we can disconnect everything here. These top two connectors that go into this white box here are the AC connectors for the AC controller. So none of our harnesses get plugged into this. When you do the install, make sure you plug them in down here into the metal chassis. So now that we've got everything removed, we're going to go ahead and start connecting our VLine cables. We're going to be starting with the GVN-MF here, which will connect behind the display. I'll plug that in here. And then this one will be plugging into our display. And this we're going to route over to here for now, so we'll be running it to the glove box later. Now that we've got that in, we're going to go ahead and do our main cable, which will be our MCF NIS9. And those will connect down here. We're going to route this up the same way we did the display cable. And the final cable we'll be running is the WL-NIS USB. This side will be going into the back of the radio, and there's a factory connector just like this that we'll leave disconnected. And we're going to route this side over here, the gray side, to the V-line. And then lastly, we'll connect the USB. I just cut it. Alright, so the GPS antenna we've installed back here on top of this air vent. It's kind of tight space between the top of the dash and the air vent that holds it in place, especially with the adhesive. And it's located right here next to the grill, so the grill won't cause any issues. For this installation on this vehicle, we're going to be removing the glove box for a spot behind the glove box. It's accessible through the bottom right here. If you do want to install it in the glove box, you don't have to take the whole thing out, but we will show you how to take this out so you can run your wires through. The first step will be popping off this cover here. We're just using our pry tool for that. And then to take this piece out, you need to push into one side. So we're going to push into the left and pull it down to get this corner out. And then you can pull it down out of place, and there's going to be 3 clips along the bottom. And once we pull those, we're going to have this piece back here. Alright, so on the back here, there's going to be this clip. You just have to pull it off, and this is what it looks like. This piece goes into a hole on the side here, and there's a little peg on the actual container lid here that goes under this. Now that we've got this free, we're going to get this out of the way, and then we've got 6 screws in here to remove. Alright, so we've got 6 screws holding this in, possibly 7. We do have 1 missing screw in the top back corner here, and the ones that we're taking out are going to be down here, and there'll be some along the top, and that'll be it. Now that we've got all those loose, this just pulls out. And And we're going to leave these connected, and we're going to be mounting the V-line back here. But you can always run your wires through this piece of trim here to go to the glove box. Alright, so we're going to start running all of our wires from the top air vent area here down to the glove box area. And we can just pass them straight through now that we've removed this. Alright, now that we've got all these through to here, we're going to work on mounting our V-line here with either Velcro or some adhesive tape to this bracket. And then we're going to get all of our wires cable managed, and we'll come back to show you how to reinstall everything. So we've got the V-line mounted in here now. We've done this with Velcro in case we ever need to remove it. And there's this bottom plate down here that'll sit up against this. And if we ever need to access it, we can just pull this down and get to it. We ran our wiring along the bottom here and just zip tied it to some fabric or some factory wiring, and then just ran them up behind the radio. So now we'll reassemble this and put the radio back in. This next step will be putting this back in. You just have to line up all the clips. You can also look at them on the side here and see these two go in. There we go. Everything's in place, and now I can start screwing everything back in. Alright, we'll put this last piece in here. These back two pegs are going to go into two little holes up top. And then once it's in place and lined up, you just push up and the three clips will go in. And then lastly, we'll put the glove box in. Alright, so we're going to put the glove box back in now. First step will be clipping in all these clips at the bottom here. So we're just going to line that up and push. There we go, and you'll feel it click into place. And we're going to need to get these up into place, as well as clip this back piece here. So we'll start with the back piece. There we go. We've got that clipped in, and now I just have to get these up in here. Now we've got the glove box back in, and we'll move on to the radio. And we'll put this side piece on here. Alright, we're ready to put the radio back in. I've got the two AC connectors for these top two plugs off to the side for now, since they're the last ones we'll be putting in. And we're going to start with this one here. This is our WL/NIS USB, and that'll be going in right here on this far corner. Next, we've got these two connectors here for our main harness. We'll be going in next to the WL/NIS USB right here. And then the other one will plug in right below that. Once we've got those connected, we're going to get all these factory ones plugged in. And this one right here, you do want to make sure this gets plugged back in. This is the video cable that goes to the display. If you forget to plug this in, you'll have no video at all. Alright, so we've got everything plugged into the radio now. Now behind the radio cavity area here, we do have 2 plugs left. We've got these here, and those will be going into the AC controller. And then finally, this last one here will be going to our panel up front for the radio. So these will go on top. And we actually have some VLine harnesses that we ran in the way, so we're just going to pull this around it a little cleaner. And now we're going to tuck this radio back into place. Go. And you want to make sure you line up the holes up top and the holes on bottom. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and put in the 2 bottom screws, and we'll show you that. Alright, so we're putting in the 2 screws on the bottom now that we've got the radio in. Alright, and now that those are in, we're going to go ahead and put in the display. Alright, we've only got 2 cables to plug in here. It will be this connector, and this is our GVNMF cable. Once those are plugged in, you'll slide in the top 2 parts of the display, and then line up the bottom holes. There we go. Alright, once those are in place, we'll put in our last 2 screws to hold them in. And now we're ready to put all the trim back in. Alright, and this piece of trim will just slide right into place. If you did run your wires through this way like we did, make sure you check that none of them are in the way of the air vent. And make sure this cable's out for the next panel to go in. And now we're ready to put these 2 screws in. And we've switched to using the black screws now, as the silver screws held in the radio and the display itself. The last piece we'll be putting in will be this front panel here. This 3-pin connector is going to go in right here, and then we'll plug in all of these on the back of the panel. And then this piece will go in here. And then this will go in at an angle. And you might want to move some of the wiring up a little bit to make sure it all fits in there nicely. So these will line up in between these pegs. You'll tilt it back and then push down. And we'll put in the last 2 screws at the bottom. Alright, we'll put the screw in here. Alright, so we're putting in the panel last here. This plug will be going in right here. And then this plug will be going to the cigarette lighter itself. Once those are in place, you're going to set it in at an angle, and you will want the shifter back in pretty much reverse, neutral, or drive. And then from here, we've got these last 2 connectors. These are only if you have the heated seats. Go. We'll push that down into place, and then lastly we're putting on the shifter and then putting on the trim right here. Now that we've got this panel in, we're going to slide this back on. This will just clip into place. There we go. And then we'll move on to the shifter. To put the shifter back on, you'll just put the knob back on top, and then we have this locking bit here. It'll go in this orientation on. And if you do it the wrong way, the actual boot won't fit on top anymore. And that'll push up.